right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So Eric Stimmel, Allure. Am I saying it right?
Allure Real Estate. Yeah.
Allure Real Estate. Tell me
Yeah.
about it, man. I mean, tell me about Allure. Tell me about yourself. What got you into real estate? All the things.
Okay. Well, Allure is what you would call a boutique brokerage. There are about 40 agents,
Which is considered small.
considered small.
Yeah.
The brokers are Isaiah Tibbs and Carrie Redding,
Okay.
and they've both been in real estate for forever, 20 plus years. Very knowledgeable, really good bunch of people in the brokerage, a lot of range of experience with the agents. There's some people who just came on this year, like myself, all the way up to people who've been doing real estate 20 plus years. So very supportive environment and just a good teamwork and a good place to be a new agent or an experienced one for that matter.
What drew you to working with them?
So I had worked with Isaiah on insurance we figured out recently, about 15 years.
Wow.
So I did insurance for him, for his clients. And when I was ready to make the transition into real estate, I checked in with him and said, well, tell me what's going on with Allure. And here I am.
I love that. So
Yeah.
in the insurance space first,
Yeah.
you said what, for 15 years? Or that's just how long?
18 years.
18 years. What made you decide to make the switch? I mean, most people who are in insurance that long stick around for the...
Yeah. Well, a combination of things.
Okay.
Market was changing quickly. I was a captive agent.
What does that mean for the
Sure.
people?
Captive means, so if you're with State Farm or I was with Farmers or Allstate, it means you can offer State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, you can offer one line of products.
Got it.
And you're not allowed to go outside and
that's
offer
captive.
other things. That's captive.
Got it.
So
What's the reason behind that? What's the incentive?
Well, there's a lot of incentive.
Okay.
You've got a brand behind you,
All right.
which is quite powerful. Everybody's heard of State Farm, Farmers, Allstate. You know, they do a lot of marketing, and they've done a great job with establishing brands and things like that. So you have that behind you. You typically work with a pretty good sized company. Everything is in-house. So when you need a resource, you call somebody within your own company, an underwriter, a claims adjuster, or a salesperson, whoever it might be.
I got you.
And they report to you basically. So you do have a lot of support behind you. You've got a big brand behind you. You've got in-house claims. So the claims department stays accountable to the agent. And so when you're helping your client get through a claim or work through a policy change or something, you do have a lot of support and a lot of resources.
I see.
So
you were a captive agent for 18 years,
Yeah.
and what made you decide to make the switch?
Well, just changes in the business.
Okay.
We're starting to lose a lot of business, and that's not something I want to dwell on.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also time to maybe look around and do something else.
You're just over it.
Just over it.
Okay.
And not anywhere near ready to just retire.
Mm-hmm.
So I had worked closely with real estate, with mortgage lenders.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think of it as the three-legged stool with mortgage, real estate, insurance.
I agree.
And I probably could have just as easily gone into the mortgage business because I've worked so closely with it and walked clients through and made sure the insurance complied with what everybody needed.
Right.
So it didn't feel like it was that big of a leap. I was used to working with clients. I was used to valuing property, inspecting property, like how much is this worth? Can we insure it for this much? So if you can do that, you can figure out, well, how much can we sell this for?
Yeah, yeah.
It isn't as big of a leap as you might think.
Right.
And you get used to commission sales.
Mm-hmm.
And once it's scary for a lot of people to think, well, if I don't sell anything this month, I'm just not going to get paid.
Uh-huh.
But I got used to it, and I got to where it was really the only way I wanted to work after a while. I set my own hours. I worked as hard as I needed to. Sometimes my kids were young when I started my insurance business. So one of the things about being self-employed is you do need to work hard and as smart as you can. But if you need to take some time off, you can do it. If your kid has a choir concert at 2
Right.
o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday, you just go.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, wait, I've got a meeting. Somebody's making me be somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flexibility was always key. And you have the same thing with real estate. You do need to put in the hours and put in the work, but you can allow for quality of life. Sometimes it may be, okay, I'm going to go to your event and then I'm going to go back and work for a couple hours, but I am there.
Right.
And so the flexibility is hugely important in the world of commission sales. So that was always, once I got used to it and once I was able to generate enough revenue to keep things going, it's like, man, I don't ever want to get a job again.
I like that. Yeah, I like how you said you don't want to get a job again because being self-employed is more career, right? You're not
Right.
I get it. I
Yep.
get it. So you made the transition. How's it going?
It's going well. It started slow, and 2024 is supposed to be kind of a slow year in the market.
Yeah.
And see, I'm coming in new, so I don't have anything else to compare it to. So in my mind, being new kind of helps a little bit because I'm not psyching myself out and going, oh no, we can't do any business. It's slow. The market interest rates are high and there's too much inventory. And see, not having anything to compare that to helps in a lot of ways. You
Sure.
just sort of learn about, this is just kind of how it is. And I am getting a little bit of traction. I have a closing on Monday.
Congratulations.
I sold a listing earlier this year, and I've got another listing on the market. So it's my understanding that a full half of us in the Austin market, in terms of real estate agents, did no business this year.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, okay, I'm ahead of zero.
There you go.
And so you keep your chin up and you just keep trying. I don't think there's any real secret to it.
What's been the biggest obstacle that you didn't prepare for?
Probably not having a real solid marketing system in place.
Okay.
I noticed the agents that had a good year in 24 and had a good year in 23 and are going to have a good year in 25 do seem to have a bit more of systems in place.
Okay.
And I'm still kind of figuring that out. I was very fortunate with my last business, where my last few years especially, I was just in more of a maintenance mode versus a growth mode.
Okay.
So I'm starting over with growing from zero. So that's probably not having that as firmly in place as it might be is probably my biggest challenge.
Is there anything that ended up being a lot easier than you thought it was going to be?
Actually doing the work, doing the deals.
Like once the client is identified?
Once the client is identified,
Yeah.
then it's like a reflex. Muscle memory takes over, and you say, okay, well, we put the value in front, we make the offer, they take it or they don't, and we move on. And
Yeah.
we list their house and we sell it and we negotiate, and all of those things are a lot more reflexive. It's to me, it's just finding new clients
Yeah.
who want to work with me. So
It's one thing we talk about on this podcast a lot because, the podcast it started off as a real estate podcast, but then it became a little more entrepreneurial. We've had a lot
Yeah.
of different businesses on here, because you made a great point. You're basically a self-employed independent contractor, and real estate agents, when it comes to business, it's very similar to any business, HVAC or roofing or anything like that. And the one thing we talk a lot about when we have conversations about people who want to get into the business is I would envision you're a little early in the career, but do you have a transaction coordinator that you're working with right now?
So we have one. The recommendation was to do the first few myself.
Right.
So I'm still in that phase.
Well, here's the point I'm trying to make is
yeah.
that, that transaction coordinator from a, logistical standpoint is probably just as qualified, maybe even more qualified than a lot of the real estate agents when it comes to the contract.
Absolutely.
Right. And so what we talk about is that the difference between a transaction coordinator and a real estate agent when it comes to real estate is one thing, and that is the ability to generate new business. Because if a transaction coordinator had the ability to generate new business, then they would go out there
Right.
and they wouldn't be a transaction coordinator.
Right.
They're a transaction coordinator because they have been, in my opinion, self-aware enough to know that they are not good at generating new business.
Right. Right.
And I think personally, and this is for real estate agents, it's the same for loan officers, right? I always say the difference between a loan officer assistant and a true loan officer is that one thing is how do you generate new business?
Sure.
And I think that there are a lot of real estate agents out there that are transaction coordinators disguised as real estate agents.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not everybody enjoys selling.
Right.
And
They like order taking. And
they
they're
like order
the
taking.
best agent you could ever get. If you just approach them and say, hey, I'd like you to be my real estate agent,
Right.
you're not going to be let down.
Right. Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
But
So my first career too was in restaurants, and same thing. We always, and I was sales manager at several different places, so always teaching about making offers, make suggestions, and some people got it and some people didn't. And we literally had it. You just said it. You know, we say, well, here is Susie, salesperson, and she makes an average of X plus 10 a week. And then here's, you know, Billy, order taker, and he makes X minus 20 because he'll sit there and take your order, but he won't say, well, what about a nice little glass of wine with that? Or, you know, did you save room for some cheesecake or whatever it was?
I went
And-
out to a Christmas dinner last night, and I would not have had the stout cheesecake had the server not really pushed it.
Yeah, well, and somewhere they put the little bug in your mind. Well, stout cheesecake. I don't think I've had that.
Right.
You know, well,
They got me.
Now I gotta. I mean,
was
now
good, too.
I gotta have it. Yeah, and they backed it up. It was you had it and it was good. So there you go. So that's exactly it's sales is sales, and most successful salespeople would tell you that. I mean, you just have to kind of not be afraid of it. You know, the thing is, what's the worst thing that happens in sales?
You get told no?
You get told no.
No, actually, there's one thing worse.
What is that?
You get told maybe.
Well, yeah, true. And
I could
that's
take a no.
The skill comes in, and how do you navigate maybe?
Right.
Because you don't just want to let that go, but then like, well, how much more effort do I put in this? And that's the golden question.
Well, I'm going to tell you something scary.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of agents on a regular basis.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to say 20% of them don't know that they're salespeople. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
I am dead serious. I have had instances where, you know, my value add as a lender, what I try to do with agents, you know, I identified very early on that as a lender, I'm kind of like a vampire, right? Like I walk in the room, nobody really wants to talk to me. Maybe a better analogy is like the dentist. You know it's good for you. You need to go to the dentist, but nobody really gets excited about going to the dentist, right? And
Because you haven't flossed.
right, exactly. You're going to get yelled at. And so most lenders, when they approach real estate agents or anyone, they say kind of what all salespeople say. It's you know, I've been doing this for X amount of years. I provide white glove service. I'm really good at my job. I care about people. None of that matters, right? Because
Right.
that's what everybody says.
Right.
And so with real estate agents, what I always try to do is I try to lead with education. So what I've done is I've been to more real estate training than most real estate agents. I'm not a licensed real estate agent, but believe it or not, like Tom Ferry will take your money if you want to go to the event. And I try to regurgitate that information to agents, and ultimately I'm a self-proclaimed real estate coach.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's really been my big value add. And it's like, how do we go after clients? How do we take these clients and basically make them more confident? Because the one thing that I've identified is that a confident buyer is that's as good as it gets, right? It's the buyer that's unconfident, whether it's about how much is it going to cost, are there going to be issues. So if we can tag team as a lender and a real estate agent and turn our buyer into a super confident buyer, that confidence is going to do a lot. It's going to make the buyer feel better about the transaction, and it's going to get us paid, right? I mean, profit's not a dirty word.
Right.
So-
Well, yeah. So just to your point, so I think I said I have a closing, and your buyer has to be confident because there's going to be a bump or two or three
Sure.
along the way. True story. We walked in to do kind of a last walkthrough, and the dishwasher's leaking all over the floor. And it's like, oops, that's a little bump in the road. We don't want this with the leaky dishwasher.
Right.
So now we
Of
got
course
to go
not.
back to the, it can be a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. So if they're confident,
Yep.
they're like, okay, this is a little detour. This isn't the end of the deal or anything.
Well, and so where I was going with that is
Yeah.
I'll sit with agents and I'll have that conversation and say, this is what I want to do for you, right? And if I can prove through, we're going to track this and we can look at your production now and we can look at your production in the past. And if by working with me increases your production, if we get more confident buyers that close quicker, what does that allow you to do? It allows you to do one of two things. Either A, it allows you to quickly go back out and generate new pieces of business, or if you're kind of the real estate agent that's like, hey, I want more time with my friends and family, either way, there's value in both of those.
Right.
And if I can prove that by working with me has done that for you, am I your lender?
That's your
And of
value,
course,
sure.
everybody says, yeah.
Of course.
Well, so when you start having these conversations and you start kind of going through tips and tricks and things that have worked for me with other top agents in the Austin area, again, I'm going back to that 20%. You will see agents that are like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm not doing that. And I'm
Right.
like, well, wait a second. Let's look at the production here. Let's see where you're at. Like, are you happy with your production? No. Do you want to close more transactions? Of course I do. Okay, well, this is what people are doing. And then after like going through everything, there comes this moment where I go, you don't know it, but you're a salesperson,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, no, because
Right.
salespeople are ick,
No,
right?
right.
Like,
Yep. Well, the in the insurance world, the expression was your trusted advisor. What that's your salesperson.
right,
A long time ago, I had somebody ask me to come and intern in my insurance office, and they were majoring in actuarial science. And so they were interested in the more sort of analytical, statistical part of the insurance world, which it's its own,
Sure.
just like it is in finance.
yeah,
I was like, well, okay. I mean, we're basically a sales office. You're welcome to come and participate and do what you want to do, but I'm not sure we're exactly meeting your criteria because we're a sales office.
right.
So, but they came in and they got their internship credit. So it was like, okay, well, but it's back to your point. We are salespeople,
Yeah.
and successful salespeople figure out the patterns that work, and they learn. We're not all born with it, and we also often, some of us don't shift gears as fast with the changing environment.
Right.
That the only thing you can count on these days, it just changed and it's going to change again, and just do your best to keep up.
Correct. Well, and with all of that being said, I think you're going to be just fine as a real estate agent because you understand you're in a sales position coming from another,
Right.
yeah. Another sales kind of arena, if you will.
Yeah.
So when you got into real estate, what was the thing that kind of motivated you outside of, the money? Because anyone who
Right.
says they got into real estate because they just wanted to help people, they're lying. You got into it because you want to. There's money to be made, and it is for some. I mean, I'm one of them. I absolutely love it.
Right.
But what was the main thing that attracted you outside of the money the earning potential?
Right. It's always been something I'm just interested in.
Okay.
I've always been one of those people that tools around on Redfin or Zillow, and just like, oh, that's selling for that much, or what's attractive about that property, or it's the curiosity and
Okay.
the idea that there are no two identical transactions. I think it would take a long time to get bored with it because in my limited experience so far, they've been very different. Fortunately, with the same result, we got it closed, but the working with people is never the same. So the variety of and the breadth of what you can do and what it turns out you can offer people is pretty close to limitless.
Yeah.
the houses, condos, commercial. I mean,
So for you, it's
So
kind of the problem solving.
I do really enjoy problem solving, and that comes up routinely with real
Oh, yeah.
estate.
Yeah, when I ask this
So,
question to people,
yeah,
I kind of have identified that it comes down to three things, right? People are either into it because of the problem solving. People are either into it because of and this is where I kind of fall in. They're into it. I don't get so excited about the house. I get more excited about what the real estate as a vehicle can do for people.
yeah,
That's the part that excites me the most, kind of looking further down the road in regards to like, hey, here's what we can afford. Like you need a place to live, but then this is going to get you an opportunity to get this down the road, or you could do that. And I look at it that way. You're more the problem solving. And then I also find that there are people that just are very into kind of like almost like the design and like what neighborhood is doing what and what the school systems are. And they kind of, they're really, in my opinion, those types of agents are really just more into the real estate itself.
right.
That is like, for me, I could care less about.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking more at like, this is a investment opportunity,
Right. Well, to your point, a buyer who's buying their first house, that's exciting.
For sure.
It doesn't matter the size or where it is or whatever. It's their first house.
Absolutely.
The retiree who needs to scale down and hopefully move to something that's a good move for them, a senior living place, or they're moving in with their kids, or whatever they're doing. It's like, well, that's helping them and it's helping the buyer, So in a perfect world, you get somebody who's moving willfully, and maybe they're heading to a new job, a new opportunity, a new relationship, or whatever might be going on in their life. And then here comes your first time buyer.
Right.
And it's like, you close that out and it's like, man, I feel good about that.
Yeah. No, there's definitely feel good in real estate
there
also.
was after, but you need it. You need to feel good because, like any work, it can be a grind. It can be frustrating. It can be disappointing. So at the end of the day, it should feel good.
Yeah.
So that's also a big driver. It's like, woohoo,
Yeah.
you all got what you needed, and hey, I got paid.
Right. Yeah.
I got paid for a good outcome. So.
Let me ask you this, because I enjoy having new agents on. Again, a lot of agents watch this, and the idea behind the podcast is to really just generate ideas for other agents. And with you being newer, I want to ask, what is the one thing that you've done since you started that either, when looking back, that you were like, wow, I'm really, really glad that I did this, or if there's nothing that comes to mind, it's usually easier to tell me what's the one thing that you did that you're like, that I will never do again.
Right. So the one thing I did that I really am glad I did was I've had the idea of marketing my own neighborhood because I've lived there so long.
Sure.
If nothing else, I see the for sale signs come and go.
Yep.
And by the way, where I live, it turns a lot faster than average because it's just represents good value, I think.
Sure.
But I started getting out a little bit, and I just started by going to my neighborhood association meetings
I see.
and hearing what's going on and catching sometimes people say, well, we've lived here a long time. Well, do you mind tell me about you've lived here a long time? And of course, the salesperson in you is going, well, maybe they're going to get ready to sell.
Right.
They're going to change. They're going to move. They're going to scale down.
Or they might know someone that wants to sell.
Or they might know somebody.
They've been there long enough.
So I've always tried to work organically as much as I can. So just the getting out and making contact and having the conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm not reluctant to lead with, by the way, I started in real estate. However, I'm curious because I want to learn this area. What are you up to? What's your neighbor up to? So I had a lot of those conversations.
How long do you have to be a real estate agent to no longer be able to say, I just got my real estate license?
That's a good question.
What's the number?
Probably, I'm going to guess a year.
I mean, I don't know.
So
I don't know. I'm
well,
asking.
then you can shift to say, well, look, man, I've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
So you just reframe it like, okay, well, I've done a couple transactions. They didn't take forever, You know, we got them done in a reasonable order. Everybody walked away happy.
Right.
So you can shift from saying I'm new to, well, I've been around a little while. I've lived in the neighborhood a long time.
Yep.
What do you see? Here's what I see.
It's like being a Texan. Are you originally from Texas?
No, but lived here most of my life.
Yeah. See,
So,
I've been told by some that you can't say you're a Texan until you've been here for 10 years. And then I have heard from others that you're not allowed to say it at all unless you were born here.
well, I've lived here much longer than I haven't.
Yeah.
I've been here almost 50 years.
I'd call you a Texan
So
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I don't sound like one. That's okay. I lived on the East Coast until I was 12.
I got you.
So I don't really
What
sound like
state?
I'm from anywhere. Northern Virginia, sort of
Okay.
suburban Washington, D.C.
Gotcha. I'm originally from Cleveland.
That's right. Right. We
Yeah.
were talking about that.
But I want
I guess so. I'm glad
Yeah.
I got out, and I've gotten one client so far from just going to the neighborhood meetings, one Thursday night a month.
Well, and that's what I want. Everyone that I've been sitting with, and it's interesting because it's becoming more apparent than normal. Again, this podcast is a year and a half old. We've probably sat down with close to 100 agents.
Wow.
And the idea of getting out, as you've put it, is becoming more and more important. And for obvious reasons, but the point I'm trying to make is like the term you hear a lot that agents say is the majority of my business comes from my sphere of influence, right?
Yep.
And you're like, well, what does that mean, right? And we
Right.
kind of know what it means, but when you really dig into it, especially newer agents, you start to kind of have conversations with them and say, okay, well, how are you connecting with your sphere of influence? Who is your sphere of influence? And I have identified, and I encourage every agent to do this. I really want people to sit down and like count, what is your sphere of influence? And you'd be really surprised at how small people's sphere of influence really, really is.
Right.
And to hear that you're going out and interacting with people that you don't know, I'm here to tell you, like, recently it seems like people are finally getting this aha moment, but it's pretty shocking to me how many agents swear that their sphere of influence, and then you pull their production and you're like, okay, well, that makes sense because you know like 50 people that you interact with and that's it.
Right.
Because the line that I always use is, you know who buys and sells homes? People.
Right.
Right? How many people do you know? How many people do you connect with on a semi-regular basis? And then the reverse end of it is I constantly hear, and you'll see memes like this where like, oh, I'm such and such at an age, I don't need any more new friends, right?
Right.
And people who brag about wanting to just, you know, I just want to stay at home and watch a movie. Because I'll be the first to admit there are times that, you know, my partner and I it'll be a Saturday night and we don't have anything to do. And we're like, oh, we should just stay in. And we will flat out, I'll say it out loud. I'll say, nope, we need to go out. And I have a book, handwritten book of people. And I'll go through and pick out a couple of people that we haven't connected with in a while and just shoot a text and say, hey, what do you got going on this evening? And basically, like, I'm a big party crasher. Like,
Right.
And
well, they'll say, "Oh, we're having a thing. Come on by."
right. Well,
Yeah.
and sometimes they'll say friends of ours are having a thing.
Right.
And I'll say, hey, would it be all right if we came through? And we're always, you know, very polite. We're both talkative. We'll bring some party, you know, some booze or whatever they're up to, you know, hors
Right.
d'oeuvres, and make new friends all the time because
Yep.
people buy homes and you have to get in front of people.
So really good point. I have a friend who is in their late 80s and lifelong real estate, you know, broker, agent, trainer, teacher, mentor, guru, you know, seen it all, done it all.
Right.
Residential, commercial, you name it, they've done it. And they say that. They go right to your point. They said, you know, and also my grandfather was a lifelong salesman. And I swear he never met a stranger. We used to joke about we'd send him into the grocery store to get a quart of milk, and it would take him an hour
Yeah. No,
because he was talking to everybody, and he knew the guy behind the meat counter. He knew the names of that guy's kids, and he was pretty successful in his life.
I bet.
Curiously, he sold everything over time, but where he really hit it big was selling sheet metal in Ohio.
Look at that.
In rural Ohio to like municipalities. He used to say if you drove over a culvert anywhere in rural Ohio,
Yeah.
during a certain period, he probably sold them the metal
Right.
to the county or whatever the government was. So yes, meet people, meet new people. Your sphere of influence it can be fluid. It can be, I mean, you may have your core,
Sure.
but it's a little like the core of the earth. You've got the little hard core in the middle, but then there's other
Correct.
layers. And I think as long as you keep it a little bit fluid, and people move, people die. I mean, it's you lose. If you've only got a few, you'll be surprised how quickly that might drift off through nothing you've done.
Right.
One of them switches careers. One of them moves to California, although I think they're all moving here, but maybe not the best example.
Right. Right.
But you do want to keep making friends, and because you don't know where that next little introduction. Oh, you do real estate.
Yeah.
Well, you're in my house. What do you think?
Sure.
We talked a little bit about selling it. What do you think? Well,
And those
I'll tell you what I
transactions,
think.
those organic transactions with people are the best.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll never understand people who are like, yeah, I don't like to mix, business and friendship. And it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
I always am kind of weirded out by that, because I understand the like the short-sighted thought process behind it. But like, if your heart's in the right place and you're doing your job correctly, like that should not be a problem.
Right. Right.
Right.
I had a lot of friends who were my insurance clients,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a little sort of introductory chat, because it's like, look, I'm your friend. We run together.
You're setting the agenda.
We play softball. We do whatever we do. I understand if at some point you need to switch this insurance, I will still be your friend.
Right.
And I would expect, hopefully, you think the same thing of me.
Yeah.
So I used to say, fire the insurance and keep the friend.
Right. Well, and I think if a
but
friendship's going to break up over an insurance deal, that
Right.
wasn't a super
It's
solid
probably
friendship.
not. I never had it happen. So
Right.
I insured plenty of friends, family members, and it just didn't ever seem to be a problem.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you can kind of make a friend in a transaction, because they'll get you. In real estate, you're going to work fairly closely with people.
And,
Yeah,
for sure.
And as a lender,
Even closer.
you're going to know a lot of their secrets.
Oh,
man,
yeah.
because it's like, oh wait, I've got to disclose what you want: bank statements, you want 10 years of credit reports.
I see it all.
Yeah.
All the OnlyFans charges and everything.
Like, yeah, okay, we're not going to worry about those, but
Right.
But as long as you're paying your bills,
Got you with that one, didn't I?
Yeah, as long as you're paying your bills and you can afford this thing we're doing, and that's up to you to figure that out.
Yeah.
But you do really get to know people, and the more they have going on, the more because you've got to find them the right place to live.
Yes.
And so I really enjoyed doing open houses. I
Okay.
did a lot of those, and will continue to do them. Anytime I don't have my own to do, I'll host them for somebody else, because you never know, you might pick up a buyer.
Sure.
But man, it's like the front line of a major university. You learn so much about people. You learn a lot about them by just being in their house. But you learn a lot when you ask them what they're looking for, and like, well, what do you think? I would just honestly like your opinion, because I'm
Right.
just still trying to soak it all in.
Yeah.
What do you like about this one? What's causing you to turn around and walk out after 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait. I see you're leaving quickly. Do you mind telling me what
Yeah.
what you didn't like?
Yeah.
And I'll pass that back along to the agent if it's not my listing, because it's like they want the feedback too. So to a point.
Sure. Sure. With us approaching the end of the year, people make goals and I guess goals would be the best way to describe it. Is there anything that you intend to do in 2025 that you're not doing right now? So not necessarily looking for a goal from you, but looking for kind of more of like, is there anything, a plan maybe that you have in 25 that you want to do business related that you're not doing currently?
Sure. So I don't like to say I'm not good at something. I haven't dug into social media
Okay.
the way that I see a lot of successful agents doing.
Well, this is going to help you.
Yeah, yeah. So I
We're going to
appreciate.
be able to put together a bunch of clips and everything.
All
You're going
right,
to have a lot of social media now.
cool, cool. Well, see, here we go. We're already on the right track.
See? You got to give me another answer then. You're already one step ahead. It's not even 25 yet.
And just I think to continue the networking, you and I know each other from a a mutual friend kind of person, a sphere of influence member,
Correct.
and also through networking in action.
Yeah, Montana. We're talking about you. Shout out to Midtown Title.
Yes. So they did my first listing and they have my second one, and man, they're just on it.
They're phenomenal.
I don't know a better way to describe it. Again, as a newer agent.
Doug is great. I mean, the whole team.
I'm no longer new. I'm newer. Notice that?
See, I like what you're doing.
But I know that if I just send it over, that they'll catch it. If they need something, they'll tell me.
Yep.
But otherwise, they're just on it.
Yeah, they're the best.
I appreciate that, again, as somebody who may not even 100% know on that end with title, but that's can get kind of esoteric, to put it mildly.
Right.
But I just know if something isn't completely right, they will catch it and they will come back and say, here's what needs to happen to fix it. And they'll follow up. So, and that's to me, that's all you can ask for. But
I think she might be here today.
Cool.
Yeah, today's the white elephant party, so we're doing a little bit of a gift exchange and everything along those lines.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. There's some people that I know have a sense of humor, to say the least. So I'm very curious to see what this party's going to feel like.
Yeah. White elephant parties are always it's the old Forrest Gump thing. You're never quite sure what you're going to get.
A box of chocolates, yeah. So with the social media, out of curiosity, what is it that you hope to achieve by beefing up your social media?
I think it's just the presence, just staying top of mind.
Okay.
We live in a terribly distracted world.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm the same way. If you're trying to sell me something, you probably got to do it more than once. So I'm used to it coming up. And the thing is, if you shop for something online, it'll start popping up in your Facebook ads.
Sure.
And can be a little creepy almost, but that's how it is.
I think the one thing for social media that's most important with real estate agents is branding.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that is fairly new within the last probably decade is that when you're referred to somebody, the very first thing that most people are going to do before they even call you is they're going to Google your name.
Right.
And I encourage every single business owner, salesperson, real estate, whoever, get on Google right now and Google your name and see what comes up.
Right.
And unfortunately, for a lot of agents, not much comes up. And so if all I can see is maybe like a really small LinkedIn photo of you and, someone refers me, say maybe 2 or 3 agents, and one of these agents has videos of them talking about real estate, listings that they've done. They're giving value by giving information. I can see him or her. They're speaking. I really get a sense of who I'm dealing with before I even call.
Right.
The likelihood of me calling the real estate agent with the teeny tiny LinkedIn photo or calling the agent who I feel like I already know.
Right.
I'm calling that other agent 10 out of 10 times.
Sure.
And I think that's what's most important. It doesn't generate business, but it converts business.
That's a good way to look at it.
Because there's
so
other...
I know that's something I need to tweak. So that kind of answers your question.
Well, and this will help.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll do... Now you've been on a podcast. We're going to have you on Spotify so you can listen to this in the car.
All right.
It's even been fun. I do these with agents, and one of the things I'll do is when agents refer a buyer to me, not every buyer, it's, I kind of go with my gut, but I'd say over half of them after we're having a conversation and I'm like, oh yeah, Eric, and, like, hey, we do a real estate podcast. Eric was just on a couple weeks ago or a month ago. In addition to like my application link and everything like that, I'm going to go ahead and send it over to you. Just check it out. It's really cool. And I've had people that are like, wow, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
That's great that you guys did this podcast. And, it gives people a sense of who they're working with outside of, a business kind of situation.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think it lowers the guard for people
Sure.
in a good way.
Well, and that's important because you're going to have to ask them some guarded questions.
Sure. Sure.
So again, like you say, when you get into money,
Yeah.
it's like, oh wow,
Well,
okay,
and for you as a real estate agent, you know, you get the luxury of being able to interact with the client face to face way more than I do.
right,
But going back to if this was someone that referred you, I mean, I think any salesperson would agree that your likelihood of converting a sale when in person, I mean, it probably triples.
oh, minimum,
Right.
yeah, right,
So, producing all of the kind of video content and everything along those lines and having that kind of interaction that does feel a little more intimate definitely helps. So we're
cool,
going to get that beefed up for you.
sounds great.
Anything else you want to cover? Anything else we can chat about? Eric Stimmel with real estate related stuff. What
Right.
do your buyers and sellers need to know?
Wow, that's a broad question.
All right,
see
let
if
me
I can-
narrow it down for
Yeah,
you because
yeah.
this is one of the ones that we
Okay.
do. So, as a newer agent, with all of the transactions that you've done,
Right.
is there anything that stands out that if you could just make a public service announcement to your buyers and sellers and say, hey, don't do this, or if you're going to do this, don't, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Batia was on here today, and the one thing that she said was, I would love to just tell every single buyer and seller, look, when you're buying and selling, the tax rates that are associated in different neighborhoods and everything along those lines can vary tremendously.
Right.
So a $500,000 home here might not yield the same sort of payment as a $500,000 home over here. And that was kind of her like bullhorn, hey, buyers and sellers, this is something you need to know. Is there anything that you've seen?
Okay, good. So good example, and it goes right to my current listing.
Okay.
So perfect. Literally, you're right. Your property taxes can be a lot higher in one neighborhood versus the other. So it's all the more reason to look where I am
Okay.
because it is lower. The values are lower, but some of the rates also.
Right.
And if you're trying to squeeze out every, if you're looking for the top of your range, that gets to be more critical than if you're looking somewhere in the middle. And then I think my personal advice would be slow down and try to listen to your agent.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that anybody I've worked with hasn't,
Yeah.
but I've worked with a lot of experienced people.
Right.
And I've been around the block, not that long in real estate, but life in general and,
Sure.
and things. And so I've proven to be right a lot more than I've been wrong.
Okay.
And so it's just everybody's got an idea, of course. It's like, oh, I think I know how to sell this house or whatever. It's like, well, you know what you like. What we're trying to figure out is what are your buyers going to like.
Right.
And same thing on the other side. It's like, well, I don't like the color of the paint or the kitchen cabinets or, it's like, well, you can fix, those are easy fixes. Do you like where it is? Do you like the neighborhood?
Sure.
Can you afford it? Let's look at some of the I don't want to say bigger things because what's important to somebody is up to them.
Right.
And you do need to avoid making the mistake of kind of if I've made mistakes over the years, it's been discounting things that are important to the client that I didn't necessarily think were. So you got to tread a little carefully there. But I think your clients need to understand what can be fixed fairly easily.
Sure.
And what are you're gonna have to live with where it is.
Unless
you're planning to pick it up and move it.
Well,
I mean,
that's
a different
that's
topic.
expensive.
Yeah. So you're gonna is the neighborhood is it you like what the houses on either side of you? I mean, the big permanent things are going to be a lot harder to do anything about than what color is it or
Yeah.
something
You ever heard the
something
saying,
fixable.
the customer's always right?
Yeah.
Well, get this. I found this out like 5 years ago. That saying was invented early in the auto industry.
Right.
And it's not somebody decided to only start saying the half of it. because the true saying was the customer is always right in color and taste. In other words, taste,
Right.
meaning like food.
Right.
If you don't think something tastes good, that doesn't mean it's not good. It means you don't like it.
Right.
Same with color.
Right.
Right? Like, oh, I love that color. Well, I love that. I'm not wrong.
Right.
I love it. But the customer's not always right unless it's in color and taste.
There you
and
go.
somebody came around and said, oh, let's just make it the customer's always right, because that is not true.
Well, famously, Herb Keller with Southwest Airlines, his slogan was the customer's not always right.
Right.
And he always said, why are you going to beat your people over the head with that when they're the ones that got to be out there dealing with the customers all day long?
Right.
And so he got pretty far. I mean, that doesn't mean don't take care of the customer.
Of course not.
But don't sell your people out either.
Correct.
So there's a line there somewhere. But it's not, the customer is not always right. And he was famous for even writing a letter back. Somebody would complain about, and it was like, oh, I don't like it when the flight attendants sing to us.
The flight attendants would sing?
Oh, on Southwest? Absolutely.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The good way to make a long, miserable flight a little more enjoyable. And
Okay.
stuff. But some people would complain. And so he would come back and say, well, sorry to hear you're not flying with us anymore.
Right.
But he also was in a position where he could afford to
Sure.
do that. But I think the customer is always right, puts a lot of pressure on salespeople in general. And it's like you just said, well, in color and taste. And there's another saying that goes, does it come in blue?
Okay.
It's like, you want it in blue, it comes in blue.
All right.
That's the right
Sure.
answer.
Sure.
So, but that's taste. That's color
Correct.
and taste. That's not, you're not trying. You're crappy or
Yeah.
or whatever.
Exactly.
Or you're. I don't like it that you're being an individual or those sorts of things aren't. The customer's not right. To a point.
Right. So just to recap, to sign off,
Yeah.
the public service announcement
Right.
to clients is, hey, trust your real estate professional.
Yes.
They are the real estate professional for a reason.
Yep.
They have your best interest in mind. They're on your team. They want to see you win.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Couldn't say it better.
Well, Eric, I appreciate you being on here. For everybody who's on here the first time, I do this only one time. I want you to just take a look into the camera, tell us who you are, who you're with, and, give
Okay.
us your elevator pitch.
All right. Eric Stimmel with Allure Real Estate, and have been around the world of experience a long time, and I do truly have the client experience at heart.
Call him.
Call him. Call me.
He's going to take care of you. He's a fantastic real estate agent.
It's late on a Friday afternoon, people.
That's all right. Hey, we've got the barbecue going on outside. You can go ahead and get yourself a plate, and, we'll chat more.
All right.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Matt.
You got it.